morning.
Good morning.
And welcome. I am Wesley, a member of the board at Reston UUCR. Whether you are on Zoom or here in church sanctuary, we are so glad you're here. No matter how old or how young you are, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, and whomever you love, you are welcome here. And today is such a glorious and lovely day. I'm glad that we're all here to share it together. Announcements. We have a few important announcements this morning. The Ministerial Search Committee, MSC, would like to remind you to complete the survey, the congregational survey, with the email. The survey link will be sent in the congregants after church today. You can use the QR code found on the tables at both church entrances. Which is being held up by my lovely assistant. Thank you. So it's found on both tables in both church entrances to access the survey online. Also, anyone who would like to host a cottage meeting, please see Denise Kerwin to discuss what we are looking for in our next ministerial servant. Denise? Right there. Okay. There are paper copies available today from the committee members, MSC members. Please stand and identify yourself again once more for the congregation. All right, sorry. Yeah. And if you need a paper, there they are. This survey is to both help the committee find our best candidate and to collect info on our congregation prospective ministers. The MSC thanks you for your thoughts and time. We hope you are all planning to join us for the Capital Campaign concert this coming Saturday, September 10th. The world-renowned Kennedy Center Opera House Orchestra Quintet, including harpist Susan Robinson, will be here in our sanctuary just days before they leave for a tour of South Africa. The event will kick off our capital campaign, and we are hoping that 100% of our members and friends will join us for this event, either in person or on Zoom. More information is available in our website calendar and in the email newsletter. Our annual homecoming worship service is next Sunday, September 11th. This service marks the beginning of the new church year. It will be a joyous, intergenerational service with fantastic live music. Please join us. And we have one more announcement from Tim Norton.
The midterm elections are 2 months away, and UUCR is taking part in a national Unitarian Universalist initiative to reach out to voters who are marginalized and have less access to election information. New voting laws have made it harder for these voters to cast their vote. Our goal is to increase voter turnout in these communities. If you would like to help with this effort of increasing voter turnout, please contact me, Tim Norton, at timothy_Norton@hotmail.com or at 571-206-2626. Thank you.
Our service today is being led by Reverend Scott Alexander. We are joined today by Linda Weaver, the Director of Religious Education. Music Director Cynthia Young has the day off, but she did plan the music for today's service. Diane Carter-Pelak is the accompanist today. Thank you. Diane, we are very pleased to welcome you back to UUCR. Church member Randy Newton is the hymn leader today. Sterling Pilette is serving as the worship associate. Thank you all for participating in today's worship service. And thanks as always to our rotating production team consisting of Amelia Turner, Mike Schmitt, David Niemi, and Maggie Mack. And thanks, blah, blah, blah. Now, let us center ourselves for worship. Please take some deep, quieting breaths with me. Enter our time of worship together as we listen to Chant Sans Paroles, OP 40, number 2, by Jean Syllabus and performed by Diane Carsten-Pelak.
My topic this morning is worrying, and I worry every week about finding the right opening words. Well, this poem fell into my lap yesterday morning. Mary Oliver, a poem entitled, I Worried. I worried a lot. Will the garden grow? Will the rivers flow in the right direction? Will the earth turn as it was taught? And if not, how shall I correct it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Will I be forgiven? Can I do better? Will I ever be able to sing? Even the sparrows can do it, and I'm hopeless. Is my eyesight fading, or am I just imagining it? Am I going to get rheumatism, lockjaw, dementia? Finally, I saw that worrying had come to nothing, and I gave up and took my old body and went out into the morning and sang. Welcome to worship.
Good morning. Please join me in singing number 16 in the Gray Hymnal, and please rise as you are able. The lyrics are on your order of service, maybe up there, certainly in the chat box if you're joining us online. We'll sing it twice through because it's short. Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to liberty is gained. To bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn, turn will be our delight, till by turning, turning we come round right.
Good morning. I'm Sterling Pilette. Welcome to our church. We light a flaming chalice in worship to create a reverent space for reflection, prayer, meditation, and singing. Our chalice lighting this morning is called Connection and Commitment by Cynthia Landrum. As we kindle this flame, may it spark in each of us connection and commitment to this living tradition and to each other.
At UUCR, we have a tradition of singing our covenant together every Sunday. Love is the spirit of this church. The words are in your order of service. If you're participating in Zoom, the words will appear in your chat box. We will remain seated for the singing of their covenant. And if you're visiting us for the first time, please accept this song as our blessing to you. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another in fellowship.
Good morning. Our story today for this Labor Day weekend is Si Se Pueda. Yes, we can. Janitor strike in LA. The words are by Diane, and the pictures are by Francisco Delgado. Sleep with the angels, Carlitos, says Mama when she tucks me in. See you in the morning, I say and close my eyes. While everyone sleeps, my mama goes to work. She rides the bus into downtown Los Angeles, where skyscrapers shoot up from the sidewalks. It's quiet when my mama goes into the tall glass office building, where she scrubs the bathroom tiles so they shine like the moon, and mops and polishes the floors so smooth you can slide on them if you take off your shoes. The sun is ready to rise when she takes the bus back home again to me. When I wake up, Mama is always in the kitchen, talking to my abuelita, or grandmother. We all eat breakfast together. When I'm ready, Mama walks me to the school bus. Sleep with the angels, Mama, I call out the window. Have a good day at school, she says. Then she goes back home to bed. One night, Mama said, do you know, Carlitos, I can't take care of you and your abuelita the way I want to. She sat me on her lap to explain. Even though I work full-time as a janitor, I also have to clean houses and wash clothes on the weekend. That means we don't have any time together. And I can't afford to buy the medicine Abuelita needs to help her sore bones feel better. Carlitos, she said, to work so hard and get paid so little, it isn't fair. So today, all the janitors met outside the Union Hall and voted to stop working, to strike. We're going to let those offices get dirtier and dirtier and won't clean them again until we get the paid raises we deserve. But Mama, can you do that? I asked. That's just what I asked, she said. Can we do this? And all the janitors shouted back at the same time, Si se pueda. Yes, we can. So tomorrow we're going on strike. And Carlitos, Mama said as she combed her fingers through my hair, for me to put my full heart into this, I'm going to need your help. I hugged my mama. I'll help you, I said. But in bed that night, I couldn't think of what I could do. Then the strike began. Every morning, Mama read me newspaper articles about the strike. She showed me photos of bus drivers, carpenters, ministers, and students, all marching alongside the janitors. Where did they all come from? I asked. Mama's eyes lit up. So many people promised to help us. People from Los Angeles and from all over California, and even from other states, came to take a stand with us. I cut out the photos to bring to school. Then I found out I wasn't the only one in my class with a parent on strike. Maria's father is also in the union. They're from El Salvador. And Tino's mother, who's from Nicaragua, was out at the marches every day too. Our teacher, Miss Lopez, told our class that when her grandfather came to the United States, he was also treated very badly, just as if he wasn't a person. Grandpa and the other farm workers joined together to fight for a better life, just like the janitors are doing now, she said. Did they win? I asked. You bet they won. When many people join together, they can make a strong force. The next night, I saw my mama on the news making a speech. Hundreds of people were marching behind her. That's when I knew what I could do to help. I'd go downtown too, but with a special surprise. I told my idea to my abuelita and to Miss Lopez. Then I talked to my class and asked all the kids to help. And together, we painted signs for the marchers. My favorite sign was the one I painted in the brightest colors of all. I love my mama. She is a janitor. The next day, Ms. Lopez took some of the kids from my class on the bus to downtown Los Angeles. When Mama saw us, she was so happy she almost cried. As we marched, I held my sign as high as I could. There were thousands and thousands of people all around me. I held on tight to Miss Lopez's hand. Carlos, she said, this is a celebration of courage. After 3 long weeks, the strike was over. My mama and the janitors finally got the respect and the pay raises they deserved. Carlitos, Mama said, I couldn't have done it without you. She hung the sign I made on our living room wall. It's the most beautiful sign in the world, she said. Now my mama smiles a whole lot more. Abuelita's sore bones feel so much better. She walks with Mama and me to the school bus in the morning. Mama no longer has to clean houses and wash clothes on the weekends. One Saturday morning, the phone rang right after we got home from the park. I'll be there, Mama said before she hung up. Carlitos, she said, I have a promise I must keep, to be there when other workers need my help. I took down my sign from the living room wall and walked out with her. That afternoon, we joined the workers and marched up and down in front of the hotel. Mama and I met lots of new friends, and together we shouted, Si se pueda. This Labor Day weekend, and every day, let's remember to thank people who work very hard and people who speak out for fair pay and good working conditions. A special thank you to Anjum and Tamina, who will be providing childcare for children of all ages today and who are available to provide nursery care for the very youngest every Sunday. Now, let us sing Go With Joy to the children who would like to go to childcare now. The words will be projected in the sanctuary and on Zoom.
Go with joy, may your way be peace. Joy be yours through all your days. Live and learn to serve the world and dance on your way.
So now now is the time in our service when we share our joys and concerns so that no one ever has to hold them alone. If you are joining us remotely this morning, you may wish to light a real or virtual candle wherever you are to mark what is on your heart. As members of the in-person congregation may, as they wish, come forward, take a stone or stones for every joy, sorrow, or concern they have and place it in the water, which holds so much of our love. And if anyone wishes to take a stone from around the vessel to take home with them to remind them what is on their heart this week, they may do so. And if those of you at home would like to share what's on your heart, you can do so in the chat, but please remember that what goes in the chat does become public. And now we will have our meditation music as our ritual begins. Let us be one in spirit. Spirit of life and love that so faithfully animates this creation. We are grateful for this community that is with us in both times of joy and sorrow. We hold especially in our hearts all those this morning facing any hardship or difficulty, those who are grieving, facing illness or disability or loss in their lives, most especially today, the people of Jackson, Mississippi, who continue to suffer under the unjust weight of poor water simply because government does not care. Whether shared here this morning or held silently in our hearts, may our joys be multiplied in community, and may all who gather here find comfort and calm. Amen.
As a self-funded church, UUCR relies on the generosity of its members and friends to fund daily operations and to ensure that the church and its resources are here for us and others, now and in the future. Pledges support our worship and music programs, our religious education programs, programs for members and friends, community outreach, and connections to the Unitarian Universalism. We now invite you to support the work of UU Reston by making your donation to the collection plate if you are here in the sanctuary, or at the link on the slide and in the chat box. Thank you for your generosity and your support of our beloved spiritual home.
The spirituality of worry. While it may not be readily apparent from just looking at me, for I think this is a rather subterranean part of my personality, I am a well-practiced and seasoned worrier. I regularly worry, sometimes intensely and protractedly, about a lot of different things in my life and world. One of my favorite worrying times is around 2 a.m. in the morning. Does that strike a bell with any of you? When I frequently wake from my sleep and instantly go in my busy mind to both personal and professional things that I am worrying about. Another time I frequently find myself waxing into worry is when I am out cycling every day, because cycling is a fairly simple, repetitive activity, which, while often relaxing at sometimes, also allows my mind to focus on whatever I am worried about. A sermon that I'm struggling to put together, a decision I'm trying to make, a criticism from one of you maybe, I'm trying to evaluate, a relationship I'm trying to improve, a conflict I hope to resolve, a problem I'm trying to fix, a human dilemma I fear, worries about my physical health. While on my bike, I should tell you, I often worry about various aspects of UU Reston. I worry about our wonderful staff. How are they feeling and how are they being treated by you? And are they being overworked? I worry about particular individuals in this congregation, especially those I know are suffering with disability or loss or some sorrow or sadness in their life. I worry about my own friends and family and the challenges they are facing. I worry about my nation, God knows, and my world and the ominous realities that threaten our future, about which you all worry. I worry about my personal finances and the frustrating logistical demands that life throws at me, like having to have my condo in Florida completely repiped this week with 27 holes this size in the walls. I worry about my diet and overall health. You name it, I worry about it at 2 a.m. or on my bike or lots of other times in between. When you think about it, there's always plenty in life to worry about, even though I work hard at being a comforting, non-anxious presence as your minister. I am a seasoned worrier nonetheless. And my guess is that each and every one of you sitting in this room right now, one of the curses of being smart and intelligent and alert is that you worry a lot about things. Sure, as individuals, we worry about different things in different ways with different intensities. But I want to say out loud and clearly right here at the top of the sermon, to be human is to regularly have worries, pure and simple. We human beings are worrying creatures, it has been said. And what in particular about us sitting here in this UU sacred space? Indeed, when I think about it, just being a UU in the first place means that you promise and aspire to actively worry about all kinds of things. We are a worrying faith. Our 7 guiding principles, which dream of a better world, oblige us to worry, specifically about our personal behaviors in relationships with others and the world. Are we the kind of compassionate, caring, just people we should be? And we also worry beyond ourselves about the substance of human society and the future of our natural world and planet. Are we being responsible citizens of Earth, to making the kinds of personal decisions that will affect the wider world? Ours is a faith tradition that demands we worry constantly, and how we live our lives, hopefully, with ever more responsibility, compassion, and care. But despite the universality and ethical rightness of worrying, you have to worry if you're an ethical person. Worrying in our culture has a pretty bad reputation these days, including, I think, in liberal and progressive circles. When I told a few friends and acquaintances recently that I was going to preach on the spirituality of worry, their first reaction was universally almost negative. People said to me, "Worrying is such a monumental waste of time." Another said, "Because worrying takes so much time and energy, it never really helps or changes the situation we're concerned about." Another said, "The only thing I know about worrying is that I want to do a whole lot less of it." And the fourth person said to me, "I don't know how in the world you're going to say something positive about worrying. My daughter has literally ruined her life by her constant and unnecessary worrying. Worrying is a scourge on the human psyche." So many people seem to think that worrying at its best is a useless activity, spinning our own emotional wheels. And at worst, people think it's a monumentally destructive activity that distracts us and consumes precious time and energy that could be used for more constructive purposes. Now, while I emphatically think that some kinds and styles of worrying are not beneficial to us as human beings, and more on those in a minute, this morning I want to offer for your spiritual and emotional consideration the idea that worrying, regularly focused worrying about significant things, is of course profoundly necessary and can be a profoundly positive allocation of personal resources. But before I make my case for worrying, I want to try to define it and describe how worrying arrives in our lives. I think worrying arrives when there is a dissonance, a disparity in our living. We worry when there's an unsettling gap in any number of ways between what we want and what we have, between our beliefs and our behaviors, a gap between our expectations and what we actually experience, a gap between how we think life should be working and how it actually is, a gap between how the world should be and how it's actually playing out, a gap between how we feel we should be treated and how we find ourselves being treated. Another way of saying all this is that we worry when life and relationships just don't feel right, when there's a gap. And this is why worrying is such a universal phenomenon, because life, in case any of you haven't yet discovered it, is full of dissonance and disquieting and upsetting circumstances, full of disparities. Life has a lot of gaps and complications. So of course, we're going to find ourselves worrying. Are you with me so far? It's just a necessary part of life. Is there really any way that human beings in such a world that we live in could be worry-free. Jamaican singer Bobby McFerrin, you may see we're going to feature his little song at the very end, but an international hit when he recorded "Don't Worry, Be Happy." An appealing idea, right? But is this even vaguely realistic? Don't worry, be happy? You'd have to have a hole in your head on both sides. To be human is to worry. And the good news, I think, and thus I get back to where I'm headed this morning, is that if we worry properly, that is, acknowledge and understand our worries and process and channel them appropriately, then they can be positive and creative agents in our living. Let me begin making my case for worrying with these wise words of American Buddhist teacher Louis Richmond. I think we have a picture of him, don't we? Yes, there he is. Who writes compellingly of the positive and creative role worry can play in our lives, again, if we worry about the right things in the right way. I now quote him at some length because I think he says it very well. What am I going to do? What will I say? Why is she so late? Why hasn't he called? What did I do wrong? What if I fail? Suppose she dies. These are examples, Richmond writes, of worry, compelling questions that gnaw at our heart. Worry is the mind's way of trying to deal with fear, to explain it, to verbalize it, to define it and organize it so that fear is not so shapeless and menacing. Worry, he writes, can be exhausting and destructive, but it can also be creative. Which one it will be depends on our attitude toward it and how we use it. In the same sense, he goes on, that fear is courage in the making, worry is wisdom in the making. It seems to threaten us, but it is also trying to help us. In daily life, he goes on, we worry a lot. Does this mean that anxiety and worry are somehow unspiritual? That worry is a sign of an insufficiently developed spiritual life? I hope not. Worry, goes on, is not a sign of spiritual weakness. It is an essential part of being human. While some kinds of worry are caused by pettiness and vanity, most worry comes from care. Care for our livelihood, care for our family, our coworkers, our world, and our responsibility as a mature adult. And then Richmond goes on with this great observation. Worry itself can be a spiritual practice. To worry is to be consumed by an important and pressing question in your life. To work on it over and over is not unlike a certain kind of spiritual practice. That is the gift that worry brings us. And then he goes on. Worry lets us know what the question is. It lets us know what's important to us. Worry as a spiritual practice means breathing the questions, walking the questions, eating and sleeping the questions, not obsessively, but attentively. And then he ends by saying this about the positive role worry can play in our lives. When we worry or are afraid, we think we are weak. But when we worry, our deepest resources are engaged. And part of the energy of worry is to mobilize our strength, mobilize our power. Worry gives us power if we are willing to trust it. I, for one, am persuaded that our worries, rather than be viewed as destructive and nagging pests, should be understood more as helpful and constructive harbingers, positive guides in life that point us the way if we are paying attention to what we should be caring about, point the way to what is truly important to us, point the way to questions we need to grapple with, concerns we need our attention so that we can become fuller and better persons. They're not just things that draw us down, they're things that elicit from us our best. I agree with Mr. Richmond that our worries, even though in the short term they vex us and trouble us and keep us awake at night, ultimately help us by bringing to our consciousness vital and pressing questions we need to live and work through, again, so that we can become better persons. And this is especially true of us as Unitarian Universalists. All of this is by way of saying, I guess, that of late, I have personally, in my own typically complex little human life, I've been trying not to resist or deny or ignore or repress my worries, but rather I've been trying to calmly and thoughtfully and proactively welcome my worries, at least the appropriate ones, welcome my worries into my life, not as pests, but teachers, as interior guides and agitators that are truly instructive to me about what is really going on with me in the wider world and what is truly important. I'm learning to welcome my worries as agents of my own maturation, growth, and transformation as a person and as a Unitarian Universalist. I know it's a bit counterintuitive, this idea that we should welcome the worries that disturb us and give us acid indigestion. But I am quite sure that by paying attention to them in the right ways, we can become more full and more effective persons. Let me give just one concrete example about how worry can be energizing and purposeful agent in our lives. As I have regularly expressed in this pulpit since joining you a year ago, as a liberal progressive UU, I am deeply worried of late about our nation and culture. You know, the where we're headed keeps me awake at night. I have to turn off the news sometime. I just cannot watch 3 straight hours of MSNBC. I want to put a gun to my head. And my morning ritual at 6 a.m. of reading both the Washington Post and New York Times, basically digital cover to digital cover, has become somewhat of a worrisome discipline, a troubling ritual, because the America I so love, as you know, is threatened in so many serious ways. So many Americans, almost 30 or 40% by some account, want and support things that run totally contrary to everything I believe. And I can't understand it. I can't understand how they could be so misguided. As a UU, at least I think they're misguided. I suppose this dissonance between what I believe and what so many of my fellow citizens seem to think they want could disempower and depress me. Living in this crazy country right now, I could slip into despair and inaction. And I know people who've said, I don't watch the news anymore. I can't read anything in the newspaper. That's not a solution to your worries about the nation and the world, I don't think. But in fact, for me, the opposite has happened. I haven't been immobilized by all this worry. I'm trying to turn it into it's moved me from merely worrying to trying to act more in the public square on behalf of what I truly believe, getting out there and doing something about what worries me. That's what, Tim, that's what UU the vote and the vote is all about. And over recent months, as my worries have increased, I've written my congressional representatives expressing myself more on public policy concerns. I've marched in protests and organized rallies in Vero Beach. I was known in the city as the troublemaker. I've sent money to several environmental and anti-poverty organizations. I've rejoined Planned Parenthood and sent money, and the ACLU and the Environmental Defense Fund. And now, as the crucial, and I mean crucial, 2022 election season now heats up, I'm going to be sending financial contributions to some candidates, including the very handsome young man running against Elise Stefanik up in upstate New York, where I have a home. He's a former CIA operative. He's a very interesting guy. I can't vote for him, but I can send him money. I am so worried about what's happening in and to America that I must employ and engage my worry, thereby enabling me to hopefully become an engaged and effective citizen. And the same thing is true for worries elsewhere in my life. For example, as your interim minister here, I am not the least bit embarrassed to tell you, I have been appropriately worrying, not excessively, but worrying nonetheless about this wonderful community and its future. I worry about our full and total recovery from the COVID epidemic that has extracted such a toll in terms of participation, attendance, finances, and membership, as it is for all religious congregations. I worry about you finding just that right minister in your search this year. You've got a great committee working on it, Randy and others, but you need just the right person to start your positive future with. And I worry overall about this place achieving its full programmatic and outreach potential in these challenging times. I honestly don't know how I could be a good minister interim if I weren't worried about you. So rest assured, I'm doing my job. Sometimes you keep me awake at 2 a.m. And we're going to make it through, by the way. My worries are all within the constraint of knowing how strong a group you are. I want to return to the words of Buddhist teacher Louis Richmond. Worry is an essential part of being human. Worry is wisdom in the making. Most worry comes from care for our livelihoods, our families, our co-workers, and our responsibilities as a mature adult. Worry lets us know what is important to us. Worry as a spiritual practice means that we are breathing the questions and trying to mobilize our strength and our power. So I hope I've encouraged you to think about worry in a positive way, but at the same breath, I must arrive now at a very crucial caveat about worrying before I close. We must fully acknowledge and be extremely cautious about how worry can conversely become a destructive and disempowering dynamic in our lives. Some kinds of worry obviously are utterly pernicious in terms of the emotional and spiritual havoc they can create within us. My friend who told me that her daughter had, quote, absolutely ruined her life by worry, she was borrowing worry, said this: all my life, my daughter has borrowed trouble. Her life has been literally consumed by useless and unproductive worry. If you borrow trouble all the time, you're in big trouble. I would call this kind of destructive worry fretting. Fretting is, to my mind, obsessive, repetitive, undifferentiated, and unproductive worrying. It's so wrapped up in itself, it doesn't lead anywhere. It doesn't mobilize anything. Is there anyone who is not in this room who has not fallen victim to fretting? It's like a squirrel on a treadmill or a hamster on a treadmill. When we fret, we allow ourselves to get emotionally stuck in an immobilizing pattern of unfocused worry, and it leads nowhere. Obviously, there is no spirituality to fret, only discomfort, distraction, and disempowerment. I faced this just this past Tuesday when I opened a bill from the water company in Vero Beach, Florida, and found a $3,200 bill. I fretted about that bill for about a week until I got it worked out so that my part is only going to be several $100s. Craziness. Apparently, hundreds of thousands of gallons leaked into the ground beneath my garage in Florida, unbeknownst to anyone except the water company billing department. I fretted about that $3,200. Ever got a water bill for $3,000? We must also avoid, it seems to me, worrying about the wrong and unimportant things. As I have already observed, our world has so much to worry about, and but you shouldn't probably worry about whether or not a meteor will strike the Earth in the next 2,000 years. Astronomers tell us it probably won't. Or whether you can have the same waistline in college that you had in college. You cannot. Or whether your grandchildren will get into the best Ivy League schools. Their ultimate success in life will not depend on going to Brown or Harvard. Trust me. There are a lot of things not worth worrying about. The dictionary even has a word for somebody who worries about things that don't deserve attention. And that word is worrywart. Worrywart. A worrywart, according to Webster, is someone who's, quote, inclined to worry unduly, to sweat about things that can't be helped or haven't happened or probably will never happen. So don't worry about a meteor striking the earth, okay? Now, of course, ultimately, there's no objective empirical standard about what does or does not, what should or should not warrant our worrying. What is worrisome to one person, toenail fungus, may not be even vaguely troubling to another. Still, I think it is fair to say that we all need to hone our discernment about what in our particular lives truly deserves our worry and what truly does not deserve worry. As we've already observed, worrying about the wrong or unimportant things can take a grave spiritual and emotional toll in our lives. We need to do reality checks about, is this really something I need to worry about? But with all this said, I want at the last to return to my core affirmation this morning. Many of our worries, if properly acknowledged, examined, and then directed toward positive change and action, can be wonderful, helpful allies, not pests, but allies in our purposeful unfolding as persons. I fully acknowledge that it is something of a spiritual and emotional trick to worry just right across the intersecting venues of our lives. Sometimes at 2 a.m., I fall into unproductive fretting about this or that, which simply causes me to lose sleep, nothing more. But in the light of day, I know deep to my heart that if I trust the wisdom of my worrying and trust that my worrying points me to something that I should be doing and attending to, I will eventually grow in good and useful ways. Now, as you will soon learn, Cynthia and I could not resist making Bobby McFerrin's "Don't Worry, Be Happy" song be the last word this morning. His laid-back Caribbean worry-free attitude is seductively appealing, but let there be no confusion about my message to you this morning. We must, in this complicated life, messy life we all have to share, surely we need to keep many of our worries in check and refuse to diminish our lives by becoming worrywarts. But we must also engage appropriately our worries that we need to pay attention to, allowing the worrying process to be a spiritual practice, worrying about the right things in the right way. So for God's sake, work on enjoying your life with as little stress and worry as you can, and refuse to constantly fret about every last thing that isn't right. But in the same breath, as caring and wise Unitarian Universalists, please continue to worry about the right things with an eye on your truest and fullest unfolding. Thus channeled and controlled, our worries will lead you, trust me, lead you to greater happiness, greater connection, greater purpose, joy, and fulfillment. Trust me, it's really that simple. And I say to mean to you this morning, if you can take it, amen.
Let's set our worries aside, I guess, for the moment and sing "When the Spirit Says Do," 1024 in the teal hymnal. We'll sing it 5 times through. The lyrics are in your order of service, also in the chat box if you're online. Please rise as you're willing and able to join in the song. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you've got to do, oh Lord. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says do, 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 Spirit says do. Sing! You've got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You've got to sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you've got to sing, oh Lord, you've got to sing when the Spirit says sing. Spirit says sing, 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 Spirit says sing. Dance. You've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you've got to dance, oh Lord. You've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 Spirit says dance, Spirit says dance. Laugh, you've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you've got to laugh, oh Lord, you've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. Spirit says laugh. Spirit says laugh, Spirit says laugh, Spirit says laugh, Spirit says laugh, Spirit says laugh. Shout, you've got to shout when the Spirit says shout. You got to shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you've got to shout, oh Lord. You've got to shout when the Spirit says shout. 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 Spirit says shout.
And I leave you with the words of Unitarian minister John Corrado of Michigan, who said to his people one day, "Dear people, as you leave this good house, remember to be gentle with yourself. You're okay, just as you are. Life has no erasers, but life is okay too. Don't be afraid. Have faith. Say yes in spite of the temptation to say no. Be a healer. Address the world with wonder. Engage it with courage, daring love, daring trust, daring hope. Open your soul as if it were a window, letting the sun shine in and letting the light of yourself out. Have a good week and don't worry too much." Amen.
Don't worry, be happy.
Here's a little song I
will frown, and that will bring everybody down. So don't worry, no, no, no. Be happy now. Oh, don't worry, baby. Yeah. So just don't worry, just don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry.
It is now time for us to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, or the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. We carry these in our hearts until we are together again.
Right, now the good part. We invite our congregants attending worship on Zoom to join us for our virtual Greet Your Neighbor Coffee Hour today to discuss the service theme and enjoy fellowship with other congregants. The link is in the chat box and will be on a forthcoming slide. Those here in person are invited to join us for coffee or tea and fellowship. We are going to leave the chairs set up as they were at the beginning of service, so please don't stack the chairs. We hope you will use the chat box as a virtual receiving line to leave a message about your appreciation for the worship service. And for everyone else, enjoy the long weekend. Thank you.